Later today, the Prime Minister, Theresa May, will be given a letter asking her to compensate men who are still alive who were convicted under anti-gay laws before and after 1967. Before the legalisation of sex between men in July 67, gay men in the UK lived in fear of arrest, beatings and blackmail. English computer scientist Alan Turing was the man who managed to crack the Nazis' Enigma code in the Second World War. He was convicted in 1952 of gross indecency under those laws. In 2013, nearly 60 years after his death, he was pardoned. His great-niece, campaigner Rachel Barnes, tells us she believes that all living gay men who were prosecuted, like Mr Turing was, should receive compensation. As you can see, Rachel is here. Also with us, Stephen Close. He was in the Royal Fusiliers. He was convicted at the age of 20 of consensual sex with another soldier. That was 1983. 1983. He was put in jail for 6 months and says he lost his pension, job and friends as a result. Also with us, Peter Tatchell, director of the Peter Tatchell Foundation, who started this campaign and is behind the letter to the Prime Minister today. Welcome, all of you. Thank you very much for coming on. Stephen, you were 20 when you were effectively outed and arrested.
Yeah. Tell
our audience what happened.
I had a sexual experience with another soldier in my own room, a locked door, consensual. Someone actually witnessed it and reported it to the military police. The following day, the SIB, which is the Serious Investigation Branch of the military police, plainclothes, they came, arrested us and questioned us over allegations that I committed acts of gross indecency. Initially we kept denying it. Eventually we broke and we admitted to it. I was then forced to have a humiliating medical examination in front of a load of soldiers. Then I was charged and court-martialed, 6 months in prison and discharged with disgrace from the army, which is a lot worse than a dishonourable discharge. And after the 6 months I was served in Colchester prison, I was forced to wear these ribbons to identify me as someone who committed gross indecency, so I had to be watched at all times. Having left the army, I didn't realise at the time, but it was a criminal offence as well, and it went onto my criminal record, which forced me to stop doing any decent work. I couldn't apply for any jobs where a criminal record was used, and over the years, with technology, more and more companies using CRB checks. So I was finding it hard and hard to get a decent job. I wasn't able to adopt, foster. I couldn't work in the medical profession. Virtually no profession at all I could work in. Up until 2013, when David Cameron announced in Parliament that Alan Turing had been awarded a posthumous pardon. At the same time, the police were knocking on my door, demanding DNA samples for the crime I committed 30 years ago for exactly the same crime. And about 6 months later, I applied to the Home Office to have these convictions taken off my criminal records, and they were. I was then able to find a decent job, and I'm now working with vulnerable people in the community.
Do you mind me asking how old you are now, Stephen?
I'm 56 now.
Right, OK, so over the age of 50 you were pardoned, but the ripple effect, the impact on most of your adult life of this conviction has been massive.
Yeah. I mean, 2 years ago I was with a partner who had just successfully got a job working with the Ministry of Defence, high level, and he was told that he had to get a criminal record check on me because I was his partner, and I had to explain to him that I'd been kicked out of the army under gross indecency, which was quite embarrassing having to tell him.
Rachel, why does Stephen deserve compensation from the British taxpayer in your view?
Oh, Stephen most definitely does deserve compensation. I mean, this is the worst story as I've heard since I have been campaigning for gay rights, and since Alan Turing got his pardon back in 2013. I'm absolutely certain that Alan Turing would want compensation for everybody who suffered exactly as he did because of these anti-gay laws. I mean, these laws and prosecutions absolutely overturned lives. People had financial hardship, as Stephen has said, because they had lost their jobs, they couldn't work. Also, the social stigma totally affected their lives. Family relationships broke down because of that. They also suffered mental and physical poor health because of all of this also. So it is absolutely right that everybody should receive compensation. I think it's important to say also, though, that compensation is never going to cure any damage and trauma that's happened to their lives previously. This cannot be overturned. But it will go some way towards some recompense and somehow saying that we are sorry for the way these people have been treated.
Peter, do these men deserve to be financially compensated? Many have been pardoned. Is that not enough?
Well, the government has acknowledged that a grave injustice was done. It's made a formal apology. I think it's logical that men who have suffered should receive some form of compensation. Many of these men who were convicted were forced to pay huge fines. They served months or years in prison, where often they were beaten up by other prisoners. When they got out of prison, they had no job, home. Those who were married, often their marriages broke up. They lost custody of their children. Many of them, like Stephen, found it almost impossible to get another job because no one wanted to employ a, quote, homosexual offender. And a lot of them had mental breakdowns and were suicidal, and some even committed suicide. So the trauma these men went through is just so great. And
not that long ago. I mean, this was, Stephen, your case was 1983, the 80s, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, of course, the law against same-sex relations was only finally repealed in 2003 in England and Wales, and not in Scotland and Northern Ireland until even later. But there was a partial decriminalisation in 1967, but it was very, very limited, and that's why men were convicted after 67. Probably about 15,000, we estimate, were convicted after 1967. And of those convicted before and after, there's probably about 15,000 still alive.
This is a statement from the Ministry of Justice. Whilst we can never undo the hurt caused by these historic injustices, we have taken decisive action to right these wrongs. Last year, we officially pardoned thousands of gay and bisexual men who were convicted of now abolished sexual offences. Compensation remains available to individuals who had their convictions reversed, including when new evidence has come to light and proven their innocence. That doesn't sound like it's going to help you, Stephen.
No.
I mean, what do you think of that? Is if you get your conviction overturned, if you bring some new evidence from something that happened 30, 40 years ago, what do you think? I mean,
it's basically impossible. That is a cop-out. I mean, Germany has agreed to compensate gay men who are similarly prosecuted. I think there's other jurisdictions who are also looking at it. These countries are recognising that a grave, grave injustice was done, and they want to put it right. And as Rachel says, no compensation can ever erase the suffering, but perhaps it can help these men who are often now quite elderly live some comfort in their later years.
Yeah. Thank you, all of you. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming on the programme. Thanks for being so candid. Thank you. Thank you.